Jerry Seinfeld gave the commencement address at Duke University. And as is the case at all these universities so far, there was a protest. There was a walkout. I believe we have a clip and we can hear not just some boos, which I think were largely directed at the protesters, but chants of Jerry, Jerry, Jerry at Duke.
Jerry is also serving as our commencement speaker today. What's the big deal about our commencement speaker?
Now, it's hard to say from that clip, where the booing was directed. So as Jerry takes to the podium, I'd say a dozen, maybe a little more students walk out in protest carrying a Palestinian flag. Jerry Seinfeld was received, by the way, with chants of Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. So it wasn't all negative for him, if any of it was negative for him. And he went on to give a speech, they say, a commencement address full of jokes, but 3 big pieces of life advice. By the way, coming up in just a moment, we're going to find out, is Seinfeld on the Mount Rushmore of sitcoms? Stick around just a moment, and we'll debate what the Mount Rushmore of sitcoms exactly is. But I want to dive into the mindset of those students that are walking out of Duke, that are disrupting commencement addresses at Michigan, who have held hostage Hamilton Hall at Columbia. The students that have taken over the building of Hamilton Hall at Columbia published in a demand letter, a manifesto, if you will. And I think it's incredibly enlightening. I think it tells you who these kids are. They give you some idea. They say, who are we? Some of us are students under the threat of expulsion. Others are staff, faculty, alumni, and community members. However, inside, they've renamed it Heinz Hall. They're saying in memory of a young Palestinian girl named Heinz. They've renamed Hamilton Hall. Inside of Heinz Hall, none of the distinctions matter. To liberate the building was to tear down the artificial border between student and non-student imposed by classist, racist sorting mechanism, which determines who deserves a place within the ivory tower and who remains locked in the gate outside. Let's stop right there. They're obliterating the distinction between student and non-student because it's classist and racist. At a private school that cost, what does Columbia cost right now? I mean, I'm $80,000 a year to go to Columbia. Now, I imagine the parents that are paying that bill have a pretty big distinction between student and non-student. There was reports over the weekend, I believe, at UPenn, where encampments were dispersed, were just torn down. 9 out of 33 arrests were students. The rest were non-students. This is happening over and over. MIT, I believe the number was like 10 out of 30 or 40 that were arrested were actual students at MIT. These campuses are to be taken over by paid agitators, by professional protesters, by non-students. And the students themselves are saying, hey, man, that's a distinction that doesn't matter. And they sound just like, intentionally, they sound just like the protesters of the 1960s. Let's throw this one up if we can. Off campus and into the streets. So what happens next? The enemy may have dismantled our communes, but we know our struggle has only just begun. Just as the Vietnamese revolutionaries ignited the cycle of student revolt in '68, the Palestinian people inspire us to continue building an insurrectionary energy incubated in the encampments. The student intifada will become a revolutionary force only when it succeeds in integrating itself with the struggles of the surrounding community and expand the popular cradle of resistance beyond the campus and into the streets. And they go on, what you see on your screen right now. And what I find fascinating about this is not only are they blending between students and non-students, they're blending between campuses of colleges that don't even relate to each other. Look, CUNY, C-U-N-Y, at City University of New York, also had an encampment. Now they're aligning with them. You know, they're talking about the plight of the students at CUNY that were arrested. And he says, we reject the hierarchical divisions imposed on us by state and understand the mobilization as part of a unified whole. We insist that CUNY and Columbia are one campus. Again, tell that to the parents that paid for the tuition difference between CUNY and Columbia. They're all the same. But also, non-students and students are the same. So how are the campuses the same? And they're fighting this revolutionary battle that is just like the 1960s. They compare themselves. Just as the Vietnamese revolutionaries ignited the cycle of student revolt in 68, the Palestinian people inspire us today. What is old is new again. History repeats itself. Kind of makes you wonder what comes next in the turning. You know? They didn't reinvent protest. They didn't reinvent grievance. They didn't reinvent Marxism. And that's what it is. It's all the same. Yes, there's anti-Semitism involved in this stuff. But these students know so little about Gaza. When you're interviewed, they talk about capitalism. They talk about colonization. They talk about Western oppressors. I don't know what the New World Order is that they seek. Do they seek sort of the banana republics of Africa? Do they seek the chaos of Central America? I don't know what exactly New World Order they would seek, but what is clear is the biggest civilizational advancement in the history of man, the advent of Western civilization, from the Greeks through the Romans to the European Enlightenment to the founding of the United States of America, from the Magna Carta to the Constitution of the United States, is the greatest leap civilizationally for man, where he was granted individual rights, that he wasn't just a subject of a king, that he had a way to live his life, and he was unleashed by freedom. Freedom as a natural right and freedom as an economic order. And he unleashed with that the Industrial Revolution, which virtually eradicated poverty in Western civilization. And all of what I just described to you is historical fact, and all of what I just described to you is rejected by these students in pursuit of some new world order. In their own words, right there from Hamilton Hall.